Welcome everybody tonight for this webinar. It's great that you could make it, and I'm happy to share some of my knowledge and experience on how to judge startups based on the lean progress model that I created as an addition to the other lean startup frameworks, and that I also shared in a book called Lean Innovation Guide. And let me shortly share and start the presentation.
Looking good.
Okay, so tonight I would like to first give you a short introduction of myself and of COREangels Big Data and AI Europe, where I'm together with Pascal Stempel and Samira Kurti, managing partner. Then I'll introduce you to this lean progress model as a framework and structure to judge the startups you might want to invest in. And I would like to make it practical. So I would like to apply it to an example I brought with me. And of course, there will be time for questions and answers in the end. Okay, so to begin with the introduction, my name is David Griesbach. I did a master's in strategy and international management at the Business School, University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. It's one of the well-known business schools in Europe. And I also did a PhD there, and there I came to similar conclusions as Lean Startup did at more or less the same time. And so when I heard about Lean Startup around 2011, 2010, I really knew, okay, this is the way to go when you want to build a successful startup, because writing a 30 to 50 page business plan and believing that it will be like this in the end, it's really a plan that wasn't the success road. So on the upper right hand side at the University of Applied Sciences in Lucerne, Switzerland, I could take over a master's module, which is quite big. It's 9 ECTS and in German and English. And it was 11 or 12 years ago where I told them, when I took it over, I would really focus on lean startup, because this is the method to go for innovation and startups. And so I did, and it's still running, and I'm still leading it. It's the 11th year, or this year it's the 12th time, and it's really a great course, and the students, the Master of Science students, really like it and benefit from it. On the left-hand side is my role as a managing partner of COREangels Big Data and AI. We are focusing on European either big data or AI startups, not only on core technology, but also on business models that are driven and enhanced by AI. But it should really play an important role in the startup. And we have invested so far in 4 startups out of around 20, which is our goal. And we're progressing really well, and we're onboarding investors in a continuous way. I also have to say that Pascal Stempel, who's here in the call, he's responsible for the startup scouting and startup management and so on. And we have a very fine-grained way of judging the startups. There are some overlaps with the model I'm showing you today, but I mainly use the model during the pitch session. So the really best startups that get to our events where they can pitch there during the live session, I really take notes with the structure in my head and on my notepad with this model. So there is not only this model, but for me and personally, it really helps me very well. I also did some strategy and innovation consulting, and still doing it. Two examples, I helped Implenio as well as Kercher, maybe you know, the high pressure water cleaning company out of Germany, and Implenio, Switzerland's biggest construction company, to build their innovation management with the focus on lean startup. So they asked me to help them bring in this lean startup thinking into their innovation department. And on the right-hand side, Nerucho Health was a remote functional medicine startup I tried to build. I, let's say, failed, or I just said, let's stop it because I need more energy for COREangels and other projects. And there is a food pairing app, it should be still running on Android, where you can create, you know, we have a database that knows which food ingredients work well together, so you could combine them and then creatively cook something out of it. But we didn't go further with that tool. But there I learned also a lot about what it means to build a startup, to know, is it a problem worth solving, and so on. And the book I talked about, where the main part of the book is the model I'm showing you today. So let's say 2/3 of the book are covering the model and in-depth look into the factors of the model, of how to apply it. In the beginning, there is a shorter part introducing or deepening the knowledge about lean startup with all of the most important tools. So if you want to deep dive into the topic, if you want to know more after the webinar, I really would love if you order the book, because it's compressed knowledge, and it's really worth it. It's a companion and coach in your pocket. You can use all the time. Okay, so then now let's go to the main part, the introduction of this lean progress model. As the title says, it's about how to progress in a lean way as a startup or innovation project. And the idea of creating something like this came on the one hand out of the course, because I realized startups and students, they sometimes really have difficulties to get this mindset of iteratively learning what customers really want, how they should adapt, how to iterate, how to change and pivot, because a lot of people think it's the idea, and they fall in love with the idea and are not able to change it anymore. But if you don't provide value for customers, you will never make a lot of sales, and then the startup won't be valuable in the end. And so I also, besides the coursework, I did 25 interviews with startups and innovation heads, and out of these interviews, I knew what does the community really need, and I came up with the model. I used it in the course, changed it because the students had to write reflection papers on it, so I knew what to change and what to improve, and this is the final version. So why an additional tool? So the lean startup movement says, let's burn the business plan. Let's forget about the business plan. But often we then might end up in a chaotic way of just trying out a little bit, going forward. But, you know, without the plan, how do you know where to go, what's correct, what's good, what's valuable or not? And so the solution is a navigation instead of a plan. So if you don't have a map of the territory, you need something that navigates you through this territory. And as a startup, you never have a map because you don't know where you will end up. And so it's something similar like such a navigation tool, and it looks like this. So it's very simple. It's the most important factors, success factors of a successful startup that have to be really well defined, and the market, the customers, the partners should really give you feedback that in every of these aspects it's really worth and possible to successfully go on. So on the one hand, simple tool really gives you all success factor at a glance. You never will forget it. And behind each of these success factors, there are main leading questions like this one. So, for example, is the problem really relevant enough? So, is it worthwhile to solve this problem? Is it big of a pain or not? If not, then why should we go on? And are the alternatives better? So, is the solution they use at the moment, and if you come up with software, it can even be an Excel sheet or even be pen and pencil. Sometimes, if that's good enough, it's very difficult to create a better solution. Then the market, the potential should be attractive enough. We should have enough potential customers available. They should be reachable. So we should see, is there a path to the customer? And that's also combined with viability of the business and business model and technology. So can we do it at the low enough price? How much, for example, this customer acquisition cost should be quite much lower than the customer lifetime value. So is this possible to reach, for example, a 3 times customer lifetime value of the customer acquisition costs and so on? And scalability means how easy it is to scale efficiently enough. So if we grow, does it mean for each 10 new customers, we need 2 more employees? Or does it mean if our software or whatever scalable solution is in place, we can grow at a really high speed without being confronted with a lot of increased costs or organizational issues? And traction, of course, this is the real evidence of the market demand, and depending on in which stage of the startup you are, it starts from first email addresses of potential customers. And of course, money is the best currency. So whenever you start making first revenue, it's good, but then you have to go to the next level and cross the so-called chasm and get from innovators to early adopters and so on. So this all has to be judged at depending on the phase you are. And then with a simple color coding, like an ample for the cars, and adapt the colors, and in which parts your project, your startup, you're judging is very successful in your opinion, or where are the biggest problems. So if it's green at the moment, for example, here, we know that it seems to be a really very important problem. But maybe if the startup goes on and realizes that it wasn't for the whole mass of customers they thought of, but it's maybe just for a niche they talked to first, so then maybe the potential gets yellow again. So it's really a dynamic tool. And if we watch the startup in a pitch, of course we can only judge the current moment. But what we can do is, and never a startup will be green in all of the fields. But if we see, for example, a yellow in our opinion or red, then we can ask the right questions and we know what should the startup do next, and do we think these kind of people in this team are able to do this and bring this forward. Okay, and just to give you some insights of the book. So if in the book there, for each section there are different sub tools that help you with the judgment, for example, here of the problem. So this is the problem pyramid of Steve Blank, the main founder of the Lean Startup movement. So Eric Ries, who came up with the book and the title, he was a student at Steve Blank's course, and he just knew how to sell it in a better way. But and this explains which kind of problems are better for you as a startup. So the further you get up in the pyramid, the better the problem is, the more likely it will be able to sell the solution. Or there is, for example, the problem framing approach. So when you think of an elevator that is too slow. Of course, you can improve the motor, you can improve the algorithm so that the elevator is always where it's needed most and close to the level where it's needed next and most. But maybe if you reframe the problem, if it's just about the waiting time, which is tedious, you could think about different solutions. So it's like a reframing of the problem space. So you could, for example, shorten the perceived wait time. Or I also explain in the book why I think problem is the right term, because a lot of people say, yeah, but what about needs? Can't we talk about needs? It's more positive. I think problem is quite the right term, because if it's a need, we are most often a bit we tend to think of a need that is not really there. If we think of a problem, then we really have to say what is the pain of the customer and is there really a pain. But I won't go into details here, so just to give you some ideas of the book. And the model is also available as a poster, and it can be used. I show you how it can be used as a startup. So the startup can write down or should write down, and often this is in the beginning very important, but also at the later stage where there are bigger questions, where there is the question of pivoting or not, it's advised to use it. And the idea is that you write down all of the assumptions, all of the hypotheses you can think of, and a lot of them are hidden, so you have to really work on it and then try to find all of the hidden assumptions. For example, we assume that customer group X has problem Y, we assume that the market is this big, and so on. So all of these assumptions. And then you can work in a sprint kind of way and, for example, take 3 hypotheses, go to customers and partners, talk to them, and then falsify ones or unclear ones with the question marks, or mark verified ones. And the verified and falsified ones can be put on the side. And during each iteration, you will judge the respective success factor with this color coding. So in this case, the hypothesis 5 of the problem was verified. So we think the problem is green, but the solution, it's not yet clear if the solution is really good enough. And so you go on like this, you take on new hypotheses, and you iteratively, so the tool really helps to explore forward, to learn forward in this lean startup kind of way, but in a very transparent and structured way, where the team and the investors, if they are involved, really know what do we need to understand next. Is it mainly the solution that should be improved? Or is it the market potential where we have question marks? Or is it the viability? So it helps to focus on the most important learning aspects. An example, this is from an innovation project group. So this is a real example. It's also in the book. So they had the idea of creating a vacant space platform. So imagine that they thought of DHL, or I don't know your couriers, but all of these transport companies that bring packages or goods from one place to another. They thought of them having some vacant space that could be sold over a platform. And I thought, why not? It's a good idea. They could help these transporters, and they could also gain some money with the commission. But after a week already, they came back. They talked to DHL, I think. They came back and they said that they don't have any vacant space. So imagine a startup thinking of what name could we have? How should our logo look like? How should our website be like? But I congratulated them and said, hey, great, because you learned after 1 week already that this is not possible. That's not the way to go. They had another idea. They thought of people going from bigger cities to another could take packages with them in the train and be like a transport system and then bring it to the train station somewhere. I wasn't sure, and it took them, unfortunately, a bit longer, but they realized it didn't work. And also a bit by accident, one of the people they talked to was an owner of a bike messenger company. And he showed enthusiasm and he asked them, where is your solution? Could you show it to me? Because our bike messengers, they always have hours they cannot work. So 1 hour, 2 hour, they just wait until there is a next order. And this was a much better solution. And so it's still the similar idea of vacant space somehow, but it's vacant time for bike messengers. And so they went into this direction. And so that was the introduction to the model in general, how it's explained in the book and how it's meant as a tool for startups to start and grow and know where to head, how to iterate, how to pivot and change. But we can easily use it to judge a startup also from the outside. And here I would like to make a short application together with you. And this is a Swiss company. I don't know if Pascal knows them. I looked it up. They exist since 2017. So since 7 years, they work on a portable steamer to heat up your food at lunchtime out of your home. So I think they are still working on it. You can order it, pre-order it now. The current version, it costs around 250 euro, and your food should be steamed and warm within 15 minutes. So that's the background information. So it's food you cooked, let's say, in the evening, and you have leftovers. You want to take it with you, and you want to have it heated. This is the solution, the portable solution, with an app connection and everything, highly polished. So let me just, I have to stop the presentation and go to the other mode for a second. Just a second. Here it is. So just, as a working example, and I think we can just talk. I think it's easiest if you unmute your microphone and just talk. Let's collect 1 or 2 or 3 hypotheses. What do you think does this startup assume? What are some of the main assumptions of this startup?
That Nilanjay, please, you don't need to raise hand, just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, I mean, for me, I think the first hypothesis might be that people usually cook their lunch in the morning and then bring to office. By the time it becomes, cold, and when you microwave it, it is not really that, delicious as you get it right from the pot. So that can be one.
Exactly. So people bring food from home for lunch with them, and the other, you mentioned already 2 of them. So the other one is microwave isn't good enough, right?
Or microwave is not available anyway.
Okay, or no
heating solutions available.
There is no heating solution available, right? And Ella, what did you want to say? Or
I wanted to say they assume that people have there are a lot of people who have a lot of leftovers to bring. Just having leftovers or
Yeah.
cooking ahead of time.
Left over to share. Yeah. Or you can't buy lunch.
People have leftovers. There are, let's say, good enough options to buy lunch. Let's say if you're somewhere outside of a city, or yeah. Okay, I mean, we could go on. So there are, let's say, 40, 50, 60. If you really take time, and you should as a startup at least, there are a lot of assumptions. And what's important now is to rate them. So you need to know if which, in the beginning, which 2 or 3 hypotheses, if they are wrong, then we have a big problem as for this solution and this startup. So in this case, I think, let's say, microwave isn't good enough. So I would say these 3 are really important. So microwave isn't good enough, or there are no heating solutions at all, and a lot of people bring food from home and want to heat it. So they don't bring a sandwich because you don't have to heat it. Okay. But now let's not test them, but if with this knowledge, with this background knowledge, if we think of the problem space, do you think the problem is worth solving?
Maybe depending upon, from region to region, if there's a common, let's say, habit to bring lunch from home. So basically cooking lunch at home and then bringing it to office, then it's a big problem, the heating solution thing.
But don't you think the microwave is good enough? Because I know a lot of places with a lot of microwaves. So,
I mean, the challenge with microwave is, like, sometimes, let's say if you're in a big office with 1,000 employees, everyone has lunch almost the same hours.
At the same
Microwave
time, yeah.
is pretty much occupied. Yeah.
Any other opinion? I mean, I don't think there is a right or wrong, but
Well, I live in the Netherlands, and we do sandwich for lunch, and we don't have hot meals for lunch. So there is no problem, or hardly a problem.
I think since this is a consumer device that, supposedly should be cheap, then yes, this is not a 2,000 euro device. This is a consumer device. Let's say the potential market that probably we'll discuss later is everybody. So it's not a particular niche. And that's why I think it makes a lot of sense. You don't have to always solve the biggest problem of the earth. You don't have to solve decarbonization of the atmosphere, okay? Yeah. Sometimes the problems are relatively simple, and a lot of people need them, and they're simple, and that's fine.
Yeah, so if I summarize, so I think it's a bit in between, like, right? So I think people, if your research as a startup brings it to the conclusion that a lot of large companies only have a few heating options and a lot of people want to heat it, then I think there is a chance. But I don't think, there are quite some good solutions around yet already. You can buy cold food and so on. So you don't starve if you don't have these tools. So it's not a 100% must, but it's maybe a nice to have, and the food is maybe heated up in a better way. But I think so the problem, I wouldn't judge green. The solution, I think, yeah, it's quite a good solution, right? So if heating is a problem at lunch and people really would want it, I think, it's portable, it's your own, you can bring the food in it already. So I think the solution for the problem is quite good. Potential there, I'm a bit undecisive. So what do you think? I mean, everybody needs to eat that lunch, but how many people do eat or want to eat food from home and heat it up? So I assume, because it's student that created it out of the technical university, and there's often a bit difficulty that they are in their own world, the student world, and there you want to take food from home, but when you start earning more money, maybe you like to go to the restaurant. So on the other hand, as you said, Elad, I think it's a huge market, so it's everybody in the world. So maybe it's also green. So here, I think one needs to do some research to find it out. How about viability?
Also, I think if I may comment, it also it depends, I guess, on your expectations. Are you do you want this to be a life-changing solution that will forever change people's lives and will make you a multi-billionaire, or this is something else? I'm not sure that every solution has to be in that category. It's okay to have, let's say, less ambition.
Yeah, sure. But as an investor, you need to judge, can they grow to a big enough company and to big enough sales that the valuation will be 10x potentially. And there it's one question is, how are they valued at the moment? The other question is, how many devices they need to sell each year. So, because you buy it once and then I think you have it for quite a long time. So it's an asset sale one time. It's no recurring revenue. So, and this is about viability. So the question here is it technologically feasible? Yes, they did it. So I think they already proved it after 7 years. Is the business model viable? So can they live off this as a company on their own, grow and conquer the whole world with it? There, the question is also a bit of copy protection, IP. How easy it is for large companies in this food, household, machine sector to rebuild it or come up with a similar solution. Also here, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. Let's say that's maybe my subjective opinion. And scalability, I don't know. It's not software. Of course, there are. It's at least it can be produced with machines at the high speed, but it's a lot of material. I don't think that the level of the costs will be much lower if you sell 1 million instead of 100,000. So scalability potential isn't that big. About traction, I can't judge at the moment, so we don't know it. But if they pitch in an event, they would tell us if they have already customers or not. But on the website, it says pre-ordering, so we should know how many people pre-ordered and how did this figure increase and based on what marketing measures. So we could judge a better, is it really growing also in this pre-ordering phase or not? Okay, so I think that's a very short example. We could deepen it, of course. What I usually do, I have a sheet with all of these factors for 3 startups. We usually have 3 startups in our pitching events. And within all of the fields, I make notes. I write down questions within the fields, which I also ask during the Q&A session and also in a written form we do after the pitching event. And for myself, it really helps me to think through all of these aspects and to really know, okay, in which of these key success factors are they really good and promising, and in which of these factors do they need some more work or progress or improve. And it doesn't mean everything needs to be fully green because it's a startup, and often we invest in early stage startups, so there are more question marks. But you need to understand what is the homework they need to do within the next 1, 2, 3 years, and will they as a team be able to do it? How can we help them as a COREangels group with our investors, with our knowledge and experience and network, and is it promising enough in that sense?